L'Indienne-Océanie est une région à fort potentiel pour un développement économique plus juste, durable et résilient. Pour relever ce défi, nous devons repenser le développement des îles en fonction des enjeux futurs et actuels. Tous les secteurs de l'économie doivent mettre en œuvre des stratégies bas carbone et s'adapter aux effets du changement climatique. Cap Business Océan Indien rassemble tous les acteurs vers ce front commun.
L'industrie touristique est un secteur clé pour nos territoires, étant à la fois source de revenus et d'emplois. Pour gagner en résilience, les acteurs de ce secteur déploient déjà des stratégies pour réduire leur empreinte carbone et leur impact sur les écosystèmes. Cependant, ces efforts ne seront pas efficaces sans reconnaissance au niveau international de la vulnérabilité de nos territoires face aux risques de transition climatique.
La destruction des habitats naturels, la surexploitation des ressources et le changement climatique menacent la survie de plusieurs espèces animales et végétales endémiques. Nous, jeunes Iliens, voulons préserver cette richesse naturelle de nos territoires. Pour cela, nous demandons une reconnaissance internationale du besoin de formation pour la montée en compétences.
In our islands, several economic activities are directly linked to the ocean. This is why we advocate a collaborative approach in order to identify and to sustainably grab the opportunities. They are countless and precious, given the needs of our region in terms of food security, training, and employment. It is a sector with a future where we need to rethink all our economic activities in order to ensure that they do not have harmful effects on our oceans and its resources, but that they contribute, on the contrary, to their regeneration.
La problématique du genre dans l'économie n'est pas suffisamment prise en compte. La relance post-Covid est une opportunité de promouvoir un modèle plus inclusif. Nous voulons plus que jamais l'autonomisation des femmes et des jeunes, l'élimination des discriminations fondées sur le genre. Pour un développement durable, nous devons en finir avec les stéréotypes.
La nécessité de renforcer la souveraineté alimentaire à l'échelle régionale est aujourd'hui une évidence. Dans ce contexte, producteurs et industriels sont conscients que cela passe par le développement durable de nos filières agricoles. Pour ce faire, nous devons tenir compte des questions liées au climat, à la protection des sols ou encore à l'utilisation de l'eau. Pour renforcer notre souveraineté alimentaire, nous devons réinventer et adapter nos pratiques agricoles.
La connectivité entre les territoires est une condition nécessaire pour le développement de nombreuses filières régionales à forte valeur ajoutée. Nous, les acteurs du numérique, prenons un numérique responsable, convaincus que cet outil représente des solutions pour la transition écologique. Cette innovation est essentielle pour éviter que nous soyons marginalisés lors de conflits ou de crises internationales.
Saisissons l'opportunité que nous offre la relance post-Covid pour construire ensemble l'Indienne-Océanie de demain. Cette résilience est un retour sur investissement vital pour nos populations.
Bienvenue à cette deuxième session du cycle des conférences-débat qui est organisée par Cap Business Océan Indien et la Chambre de commerce et d'industrie des Seychelles. Ce cycle de conférences fait le pont entre le dernier forum économique des îles de l'océan Indien organisé à Maurice en octobre de 2022 et le prochain forum économique qui se déroulera à Mayotte en novembre de cette année. Le thème d'aujourd'hui, c'est l'économie bleue et on aura l'occasion d'écouter M. Mark Spalding, qui est le président de l'ONG The Ocean Foundation, qui nous parlera un petit peu de les opportunités pour les finances et l'investissement de sauver les océans. Mais avant de procéder aux conférences-débats, On a Madame Iona Pilet, qui est le secrétaire général de la Chambre de commerce et d'industrie des Seychelles, qui va nous dire quelques mots d'accueil. Madame Iona.
Salut tout le monde, j'espère que tout va bien. Bien sûr, je suis le secrétaire général et moi, I wrote my speech in English. I'm not so fluent in French. So I'd just like to dive in, and I think it is great that we are all here today. So good afternoon to everyone. Greetings from our beautiful island of the Seychelles. Special greetings to our friends in Mauritius and also the one in the US. Not forgetting our wonderful Seychelles team as well, who will be participating in this important forum. So as mentioned, my name is Ivana Pillay, and I'm the Secretary General of the Seychelles Chamber of Commerce. I wish to convey my apology on behalf of our chairman, Mr. Oliver Bastian. Unfortunately, he could not attend the opening ceremony. We at the SCCI, we recognize and value the immense benefits of the forum and the impact that it will have on Seychelles. It is therefore a great honor to welcome and participate in the Indian Ocean Island Economic Forum. Seychelles is exporting approximately 6,600 tons of fish and crustacean, injecting over 13 million USD into the economy, according to the Seychelles Fishing Authority. The tuna fish industry is a key contributor to the Seychelles economy, providing 17% of the country's employment. Export of fish is one of the biggest exports apart from tourism. It is therefore extremely important that we are aware of the impact which these activities may cause to our valuable and precious ocean. The Seychelles Chamber of Commerce and Industry welcomes all partners and agencies to continue working together to find various ways to implement a more sustainable mechanism which would last for many, many years. I therefore thank everyone for taking their time and devoting the energy for this forum, and special thanks and round of applause to CAP Business for initiating this very important event. Many thanks again to the Blue Economy Research Institute from Seychelles, because they've done a lot of research on how we should be preserving the ocean and what are the different stages that we are at and how we should betterment and sustain the ocean. The ocean is not just for fishing in Seychelles, but as you know, tourism is also our source of revenue. So the tourists enjoy coming to the beaches. So therefore, it is very important that the private sector also plays a very important role in maintaining this precious gift that we have. I do not wish to take much of your time. I know our time is very limited. So once again, I want to thank everybody for making this happen, and we are here to support, and we all have the same aim, and everybody good luck. And I'd like to thank once more everyone for making this happen. Thank you. Thank you from Seychelles.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Secrétaire Générale.
Yes.
Je vais demander à Monsieur Guillaume Huguenin, président de CAP Business à Océans Indien, de nous adresser les mots d'accueil.
Bonjour tout le monde. I'll speak in English, our hosts being English speaking. CAP Business Océans Indien is usually mainly French speaking, but of course we do recognize the presence of our Seychelles partners. So, and they're hosting the event today, so my opening address will be in English. Chairman of the Seychelles Chamber of Commerce and Industry, ladies and gentlemen, members of the professional organizations of CAP Business Océans Indien, dear guests, good afternoon. It is a pleasure to be with you today for this second session of the Conférence-débat cycle focusing on the blue economy. Since the United Nations Conference in Rio in 2012, small island developing states have advocated for a change in the economic model in the exploitation of oceans towards a more inclusive and sustainable approach. This is termed the blue economy. This change of model is justified by the fact that the islands, including the islands of the Indian Oceans, are the most vulnerable to climatic change, affecting marine ecosystems, but also socio-economic activities that depend on them. In fact, most of the changes affecting our vulnerable islands are not a direct consequence of behavior of the islands themselves, but we are victims of a much larger environment economic situation, and small islands are severely affected and vulnerable to this change. Cap Business Océans Indien recognizes that this transition is a necessity, and the association has identified the blue economy as a priority sector in its 21-26 roadmap. With the active participation of its members, Cap Business Océans Indien has co-constructed an ambitious action plan for the blue economy. One of these activities implemented by Cap Business was the organization of a week of training and initiation to the blue economy for the technical reference of our member organizations. The objective of this week was to understand the challenges of each territory and to identify common regional priorities. It resulted in the first regional technical committee. With the same dynamic of collaboration, the professional organizations of Cap Business celebrated World Oceans Day on the 8th of June. This is a first in the region, and I thank the member organizations for their enthusiasm and commitment in carrying out this joint activity. There were conferences, cleanup campaigns, participatory science workshops, awareness-raising workshops, among others. From what I understand, this day has been a clear success. A highlight during the activities of the 8th of June was the interaction between scientists from the research world, of the private sector on all the islands of the Indian Ocean. This paradigm shift from the ocean economy to the blue economy will be made with the support and knowledge of marine environment, with the support of scientists. The blue economy will also be a theme discussed at the 14th edition of the Indian Ocean Island Economic Forum, to be held in November this year in Mayotte. Without further ado, I give the floor to Yashwin for a short summary of the activities of the World Oceans Day, and I salute once again the involvement of the members in the activities of Cap Business Océans Indien. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, pour ces mots d'accueil. Sans plus tarder, je vais faire une petite présentation des activités organisées pour la journée mondiale de l'océan, des océans 2023. Il faut dire que quelques années de cela, les organisations membres de Cap Business n'organisaient pas des événements dans le contexte de la journée mondiale de l'océan. Cette année, en 2023, c'était une première régionale. Et je tiens aussi toute l'équipe de Cap Business Océans Indien, nous tenons à saluer l'effort des membres de Cap Business. Et on va juste passer quelques images pour voir les activités qui se sont organisées dans les îles. Donc, aux Comores, on a eu une journée d'atelier à l'UCCIA, à l'Union des chambres de commerce et d'industrie et des Comores. C'était une journée d'interaction avec les scientifiques qui sont venus à l'UCCIA faire des présentations pour comprendre un petit peu des enjeux autour des océans. À Madagascar, la Fédération des chambres de commerce et d'industrie de Madagascar et la Chambre de commerce et d'industrie d'Antananarive a aussi organisé une série de conférences pour le 8 juin encore une fois, avec des scientifiques, mais aussi des entrepreneurs qui travaillent dans le secteur de l'économie bleue. À Mayotte, on avait la Chambre de commerce et d'industrie de Mayotte et l'Agence de développement et d'innovation de Mayotte qui ont organisé une journée d'atelier et où ils ont pu découvrir toutes les activités de recherche, mais aussi d'entrepreneuriat qui se font à Mayotte. À la réunion, des élèves du lycée ont eu une journée d'atelier avec les membres de la CCI de la Réunion et ils ont entre autres préparé différentes idées. Excusez-moi. Excusez-moi. La réunion, on a eu excusez-nous pour ce petit souci technique. Donc, à la réunion, les lycéens ont proposé des idées innovantes sur comment protéger les océans. Normalement, entre autres, ils ont présenté avec l'idée du jet-tri, donc un jet ski qui a pour vocation de nettoyer les océans. Donc, aux Seychelles, les membres de la Chambre de commerce et d'industrie des Seychelles ont organisé une journée de clean-up et d'activités à la plage avec l'association Parler. Et finalement, Cap Business, pour cette première édition, on s'est associé avec la Chambre de commerce et d'industrie de Maurice pour organiser une journée d'activité avec des enfants sur la plage de Anse-Larrey, où on a participé aux activités du projet Sandwich de l'UNESCO. Je remercie les membres de Cap Business Océan Indien pour cet engagement, cet premier engagement, et j'espère bien que pour les prochaines éditions, Cap Business les prochaines éditions de la Journée mondiale des océans, Cap Business va parcourir la région et va participer aux actions de la région. Alors, sans plus tarder, on va accueillir Monsieur Dr Jérôme Harley du Blue Economy Research Institute et Jérôme des Seychelles. Et Jérôme nous parlera un petit peu des activités qui se font au Blue Economy Research Institute des Seychelles. C'est à toi, Jérôme. Merci.
Merci, Ashvin. J'espère que tout le monde m'entend. Je vais partager mon écran. Est-ce que vous voyez mon écran? Est-ce que tu peux me confirmer? Voilà. Donc, bonjour à tous, je suis Jérôme Harley, donc je travaille à l'Université des Seychelles, je suis enseignant-chercheur et je opère ma recherche au sein du Blue Economy Research Institute. Le Blue Economy Research Institute est rattaché à l'Université des Seychelles depuis 2015. L'Université des Seychelles est la seule université nationale des Seychelles et a été fondée, elle est assez récente, elle a été fondée en 2009. Le Blue Economy Research Institute, qu'on appelle BERI, a pour but de créer une recherche active, académique, est de travailler en réseautage au niveau national, régional et aussi international. Alors, nous faisons des projets de recherche, nous travaillons sur des projets de recherche fondamentales et appliquées, et nous opérons aussi sous forme de consultance avec des partenaires comme la World Bank. Et le but en fait de l'Institut, c'est de créer un environnement de connaissances autour de la problématique de l'économie bleue et de supporter toutes les problématiques de gouvernance océanique. Alors, on est une petite équipe, nous sommes actuellement 9. Il n'y a pas très longtemps, nous n'étions que 5. Donc, on est une petite équipe qui gagnons en expérience et qui nous enrichissons de personnes de qualité. Nos différents domaines de recherche sont les sciences climatiques, climate change adaptation and mitigation, aussi la réduction des risques au niveau côtier. Nous travaillons aussi sur la recherche en économie bleue avec des productions académiques dans des journaux à portée internationale. Nous avons aussi un projet dans les ressources naturelles et l'économie. Personnellement, je suis océanographe en océanographie chimique et physique et je travaille sur l'acidification océanique et la qualité des eaux. Nous avons aussi des projets qui portent sur l'aquaculture et les sciences des fisheries, avec un intérêt particulier pour les pêcheries artisanales et la pêcherie de subsistance au niveau des Seychelles, qui est un facteur très déterminant pour la qualité de vie des résidents. Et enfin, sur l'écologie des coraux et l'écologie et la restauration des récifs coralliens. Nous avons des collaborations. Donc notre gros avantage, c'est au niveau académique, c'est de pouvoir engager des collaborations internationales avec des universités comme les universités australiennes, des universités en Afrique du Sud, au Royaume-Uni, en Europe, principalement en France, en Belgique, en Espagne, en Italie et en Allemagne. Nous travaillons aussi avec des universités américaines, avec Maurice et La Réunion. Notre principal interlocuteur, c'est le gouvernement des Seychelles, à travers les 3 ministères les plus importants dans le domaine de l'économie bleue, donc principalement le ministère de la Blue Economy et Fisheries, Fisheries and Blue Economy, le ministère de l'Agriculture, Climate Change and Environment, MACCE, et le ministère des Affaires étrangères et du Tourisme pour les questions de tourisme durable. Et au niveau local, nous travaillons en étroite collaboration avec de nombreuses organisations non gouvernementales et des agences parastatales comme SFA, Seychelles Fisheries Authority, SPGA, Seychelles Park and Gardens Authority. Et enfin, nous faisons partie de comités et d'associations comme le Seychelles Climate Change Adaptation Trust. Nous siégeons aussi au YMSA. Nous avons des connexions avec l'IOC, UNESCO et UNIAEA. Alors, on a 3 piliers stratégiques. Notre premier pilier stratégique porte sur la gouvernance des océans, la gestion intégrée des océans, le financement durable, le développement des capacités au niveau local et régional, et la gestion des ressources de connaissances, et avec une attention particulière pour les droits humains et l'égalité des genres. Alors, dans ce pilier stratégique, nous participons à l'élaboration de documents officiels comme le Seychelles Management Plan ou le Seychelles Blue Economy Roadmap, et nous guidons en fait le gouvernement sur des questions prioritaires de la Blue Economy. Notre deuxième pilier stratégique, c'est la recherche environnementale principalement, recherche appliquée et recherche fondamentale. Nous participons à des expéditions océanographiques, j'en ai cité quelques-unes ici, avec la FAO, le programme Nansen en 2018, avec la fondation Necton pour la First Descent in Seychelles en 2019, les Monaco Explorations qui ont visité Seychelles et Maurice plus récemment l'année dernière, et Ocean X qui est une mission à venir à laquelle nous comptons bien participer également. Nos projets de recherche sont aussi variés que la variété de nos compétences dans l'équipe. Nous avons des projets de recherche sur les panneaux solaires flottants, sur les ressources aquacoles, la culture des algues brunes et la valorisation des algues brunes, par exemple, et des projets en collaboration avec l'Institut français IRD, Institut pour la recherche et le développement, sur l'aquaculture et l'interaction des coraux et des phanérogames marines. Et enfin, d'autres projets à échelle plus régionale, comme le Monitoring Programme pour l'acidification océanique, et un énorme projet qui a été commandé par le gouvernement l'année dernière et qui est porté sur la cartographie des herbiers à l'échelle de l'IZ des Seychelles. Enfin, notre troisième pilier stratégique, c'est de former des futures générations dans le domaine des sciences environnementales, de former les scientifiques et les conservationnistes locaux à l'utilisation de ressources pour le monitoring et d'éduquer les jeunes, les scolaires principalement, dans les domaines environnementaux qui touchent les Seychelles, comme la pollution plastique, l'identification des espèces côtières pour leur acceptance. Alors, pour finir, je voudrais illustrer nos activités en présentant deux projets sur lesquels j'étais le chercheur principal. Le premier projet, c'est un projet qui consistait à développer les capacités du laboratoire du Berry pour conduire des mesures d'acidification océanique. Et ce projet a été conduit au sein du WAYOMSA, bénéficiant d'une bourse MASMA. Et il nous a permis de produire des documents relevant pour la région, comme le WAYO Science to Policy Platform Series, et plus récemment le Report on Ocean Acidification Monitoring in the Western Indian Ocean region, avec une continuation possible l'année prochaine avec une bouée instrumentée et qui constituera Seychelles Ocean Acidification Time Series au South. Un autre projet d'amplitude nationale qui a été conduit grâce aux subventions du Pew Charitable Trust, qui s'est déroulé en deux phases. Une première phase qui consistait en une cartographie des herbiers marins à l'échelle de la zone économique, qui représente à peu près 1,36 million de kilomètres carrés pour les Seychelles, qui s'est poursuivie par des carottages pour déterminer le stock de carbone bleu de ces herbiers et la détermination des taux de séquestration du carbone atmosphérique. Et enfin, ce projet était accompagné par un projet annexe qui a consisté à donner un nom aux différentes espèces de phanérogames des Seychelles et un nom en créole qui a été accepté et qui figure maintenant au dictionnaire créole séchellois. Une deuxième phase que nous avons commencé récemment cette année consiste à l'établissement d'une Blue Carbon Policy. J'ai d'ailleurs une réunion demain avec le ministère de l'Environnement pour continuer notre travail. Et l'établissement de projets de recherche pour la conservation et l'expansion des herbiers côtiers des Seychelles. Et enfin, une partie d'éducation et de développement des capacités à travers des conférences, des workshops, des séminaires qui impliquent des membres du gouvernement, mais aussi des membres des NGO locales. Voici quelques-unes des réalisations faites à travers ce dernier projet. Donc, une cartographie des herbiers. Tous les points jaunes que vous voyez sur les différentes cartes en haut à gauche représentent des herbiers qui ont été identifiés et vérifiés sur le terrain. En bas à gauche, vous avez les espèces, leur nom anglais, leur nom latin et leur nom créole. Et puis quelques graphiques qui représentent la position du stock de carbone organique sédimentaire par rapport à la région et par rapport au monde. Voilà, j'ai terminé pour ma présentation. Je te remercie, Yashvin, de m'avoir donné la parole et je serai présent pour répondre à toutes les questions éventuelles.
Merci pour cette présentation du Blue Economy Research Institute. Pour les questions, j'inviterai aux participants d'écrire les questions dans le chat. Ce sera plus facile par la suite pour reprendre les questions dans la partie discussion. Et Jérôme, tu nous as bien présenté les activités de recherche qui se font au Berry. Et maintenant, on aura Mark Spalding. Donc, Mark Spalding est un expert de la politique et du droit environnemental international, notamment du droit des océans. Il est le président de l'ONG The Ocean Foundation depuis 2003. Et sous son leadership, l'organisation est devenue une référence mondiale de la préservation des ressources océaniques. Mark est aussi chercheur principal au Center for the Blue Economy at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies. Mark est aussi conseiller de la Rockefeller Climate Solutions Strategy et de la Credit Suisse Rockefeller Ocean Engagement Strategy. Ce sont des fonds d'investissement centrés sur l'océan et il est aussi membre du pôle d'experts des Nations Unies pour l'évaluation des océans. Mark a aussi conçu le tout premier programme de compensation carbone bleu, le Seagrass Grow. Et aujourd'hui, Mark nous parlera de son organisation et de comment les finances et l'investissement peuvent contribuer à sauver nos océans. The floor is yours, Mark.
Thank you very much. It's morning here, so I will say good morning, but good afternoon to all of you. Allow me to share my screen, and I will begin my presentation. All right, you should be able to see the screen now. Again, my name is Mark Spalding, and I'm the president of the Ocean Foundation. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with all of you today. I thank Yasmin in particular for the invitation and wish him a happy birthday from yesterday, I believe. The Ocean Foundation is based in the United States. We are what is known as a community or public foundation. This means that we do not have a private family or private corporate endowment behind us. We work with many, many individual donors, corporate donors, government donors to undertake our philanthropy and other activities. We do this in the context of the fact that most of us live near the coast, and most of us depend on the ocean for our health, our food security, and et cetera. But we also do it because the ocean has all of this tremendous value, but that value is being threatened by our own activities. Dr. Harley just talked about ocean acidification and the need to restore seagrass. Well, we're in the middle of destroying those ecosystems with acidification, with construction, with all sorts of things. And so if we talk about all of these different effects that human behavior is causing, we have to do something about our relationship with the ocean and change it to one that is positive. Thus, the mission of the Ocean Foundation is to reverse the trend of destruction of ocean environments around the world. We're about 20 years old. In fact, we will be 21 at the end of this month. In our existence, this number is from last year's annual report. I believe this year we will exceed $100 million in grants and services to protect the ocean in 4 major categories: protecting species, protecting habitats and special places, building the capacity of the marine conservation community, and expanding ocean literacy. We work in 40 countries on 6 continents, and we really try and pay attention to new opportunities and new developments. We're organized in 3 activities. One is pure philanthropy, where we work with the donors and make grants. We also have what's called a fiscal sponsorship program, where we have about 50 projects that we host and take care of the back office for them. And then we have a few initiatives of our own, and really some nice overlap with Dr. Harley's presentation on berry. And our Blue Resilience team does coastal restoration, seagrasses, mangroves, salt marsh estuaries around the world. Our community Ocean Engagement Global does education. Our ocean acidification team works on training entry and mid-career scientists on how to monitor chemistry change in the ocean. And then we've worked with the IAEA and other partners to develop a kit of field equipment and laboratory equipment necessary for doing that work and reporting. And we provide those kits as a grant with all the maintenance equipment and calibration equipment. Our 4th initiative, our last initiative, is focused on plastic, and it is really making a niche play to talk about the actual chemistry of plastics and how to make them less harmful. Whoop, going the wrong direction. Hang on. There we go. On the blue economy itself, since that's our topic today, I sit as a senior fellow at the Center for Blue Economy at the Middlebury Institute for International Studies. My organization maintains a very detailed curated bibliography on the blue economy. We've had a couple publications of our own in this area. I was part of the organizing committee for the Nairobi UN High-Level Sustainable Blue Economy Conference, and we have pursued engagement in a number of other forums, and I'll touch on a couple of these as I continue. I want to put part of this in the context of climate change and how that drives part of our need for a blue economy. Now, we all know the basic definition of climate change in terms of change of temperature and wind and rainfall patterns caused by greenhouse gas emissions, but we also need to focus on what it really means. Everything from hunger, unreliable rainfall for farmers, decreased access to clean water, and of course sea level rise and all sorts of challenges. And we want to do what we can to mitigate and adapt to in the face of these massive changes. Particularly for the ocean, we are looking at unprecedented ocean warming, acidification, and deoxygenation. And these are accumulating threats to the ocean itself, but also will ricochet back to harm all of us. This is an interesting part of the progression of perception. Later today, I will be sitting in on the annual meeting for the Ocean and Climate Platform that we helped found to get the discussion of ocean into climate negotiations. And in the early days, the conversation was all about how the ocean was a threat to humans because of climate change. Later, we recognized that we were disrupting the ocean through climate change. But now I think there's a lot of discussion about how the ocean is our greatest ally to fight climate change because it's our heat and carbon sink. Obviously, to address this, we need to focus on reduction of our emission of greenhouse gases, thinking about how our diet needs to be shifted, and the role of the ocean in both of those instances. You've already heard from Dr. Harley about blue carbon ecosystems, as we call them, the seagrasses, mangroves, and salt marsh estuaries, and their ability to take up carbon, store carbon for long haul. And I think that becomes part of our real opportunity for investment, and because they also provide resilience for the coastline, habitats for species, and shore up fisheries. We also can look at some culture of micro and macro algae that could also take up carbon as additional natural ways to address climate change. Putting this in the context of the blue economy, thinking about these changes, thinking about how all of them are going to affect individual businesses, coastal businesses, food security, waterside facilities, how do we invest in the future? How do we think about what we have at risk? How do we reduce those risks? But also, what are some of the opportunities? So let's turn to the blue economy itself. The supposed economic value of ocean assets is $24 trillion US, and it is the biggest economy at the level of the 7th largest economy in the world. But it's also crucial for health, right? That's the part that is slightly different. There are other kinds of economies that may not exactly be crucial to our health. Now, I want to emphasize here that when I say the blue economy, I am referring to it as a subset of the ocean economy. It is narrower than the entirety of the ocean economy, and there are certainly parts of the ocean economy that are not sustainable, certainly not sustainable as practiced. What I would like you to think is when one says green business, you know instantly that we're talking about those businesses who are trying to be green, trying to be sustainable, and we're not talking about all businesses. So the blue economy is the same. It is a subsector of all ocean economy. And so it's an attempt to move us away from extraction focused business sectors that have been destructive, that have been harmful to the ocean, and move us towards more sustainable ocean-based economic activities. And so this means we're going to exclude some sectors for our investments going forward and think about new sectors and other opportunities. Also think about how we can take some of the old ocean economy and encourage it to become more sustainable. All right, the ocean economy has existed for millennia. Some of our earliest trading in the world from in the Indian Ocean, in fact, was ocean-based. There weren't railroads, there weren't airplanes, there weren't highways. The way you traded was the ocean. And so the ocean economy has always existed for transport and trade, resource extraction, and sadly, it's always been used for waste disposal. We also want to think about the role of the ocean in sort of non-market values. What are those, and how do we think about them as part of the role it plays in the world economy generally? And what if we lose some of those or have abused them? What does that mean? What does that look like, so that we're really taking into account the contribution that the ocean makes to human society and economies in general? Some examples of these unquantified values are the provision of oxygen and fresh water through the transevaporation system that provides us with rain, regulation of climate and temperature, coastal stabilization, its ability within reason to filter pollution and process waste, and also cultural services, right? We are happy to talk about recreation and coastal resorts and historical cultural connections to the ocean. So let's talk about this blue economy as something we define as moving us away from destruction and extraction and to new things that are good for ocean resources, good for our economy, and create new jobs. Move us away from short-term, short-sighted, unsustainable practices, decrease the risks to our water, our food, and our energy security. So let's get some of the old parts of the ocean economy to evolve. Let's look for emerging new sectors and what they are and whether they are sustainable or not. So the most traditional old economy examples are offshore oil and gas, recreation and commercial fishing, open pen aquaculture, shipping, coastal development, telecommunications. Now, some of these, shipping and coastal development can be sustainable, but aren't necessarily. Can we help them evolve? Can we help shipping move to more sustainable fuels, more use of sail, more use of other inputs that are more sustainable? Can we think about end-of-life ship recycling, ship breaking, and how to make it more sustainable? In other cases, offshore oil and gas, perhaps we need to replace them altogether with something else for our energy. And then, of course, there's long debates about at what levels fishing is or is not sustainable. As many have been focusing on the ocean and developing, new investments, new activities, new industrialization in some case of the ocean, we're seeing new industry sectors materialize, and we again need to ask ourselves which of these are sustainable, which of them are not. Renewable energy from the ocean, wind, wave, tidal, ocean thermal conversion seem to be potentially sustainable. Can we examine them and understand the pros and cons? Seabed mining, sort of the opposite. Very extractive, focused, very potentially destructive of the sea floor, probably not sustainable, but we need to understand it as well. But we're seeing, the blue carbon restoration be a place of investment, new technologies, including biotechnologies, nutritional technologies, nutraceuticals, cosmetics, all of these things as potential new sectors, and we need to examine their sustainability. Alongside that, we're seeing some, trends and changes with, new governing structures such as the BB&J agreement that was reached and hopefully will be ratified soon. Blue bonds, thank you Seychelles for being the first mover on that. New partnerships, new investments, new insurance products. This is an exciting space that we're monitoring carefully. There's a new insurance product on parametric insurance to protect coastal resorts that monitors wave height and wave speed and wind speeds to determine whether a coral reef should be examined for harm in the event of a storm and then repaired in order to continue to protect the coastline, continue to protect the resort and its activities, and the resort can buy that insurance. That kind of insurance didn't exist before, and so it's going to be interesting to see what other products are created. We think that the UN Sustainable Development Goals, including SDG 14, focused on life underwater, is really helping to drive this conversation about a blue economy, and in particular thinking about how that it's going to help small island developing states and least developed countries, coastal countries, in the sustainable use of marine resources in a way that is very positive. And then we think about how those activities can support at least 9 of the other 17 sustainable development goals if we invest correctly in the blue economy. Now, as we begin to think about this, we can think of all sorts of solutions related to food security or carbon sequestration, coastal resilience, or better fishing practices. So making sure we're thinking about the right thing and how we're moving forward gives us opportunities that allow us to increase support for a circular economy. Think about carbon initiatives, think about blue technologies, including blue biotechnologies that are going to be environmentally friendly practices. So let's look at these opportunities briefly to see where the policy and investment decisions need to be made, particularly with the ocean climate that I mentioned earlier as a key goal. In particular, what are the policy decisions that the Indian Ocean region needs as opposed to those that are global, and in a way that we're anticipating change, protecting our existing assets and investments, but also generating returns on investment in investment portfolios. And so this kind of long-term resilience is what we're going to need, and we need to be thinking about as we begin to invest. So what are some of the investment sectors we need to watch that could be harmed by human disruption of the climate? Well, obviously coastal tourism, ocean transport, port infrastructure, anything that's too close to the coast that could be inundated by sea level rise or harmed by storms. Anything that, if you have waste management near the shoreline, is that all going to end up in the ocean as a result of that sea level rise and storms? Do we have investment in these sectors? If so, what do we do to back out of that investment or get those businesses to do something to adopt mitigation or adaptation activities? On the flip side, disruption of the climate creates new investment opportunities, things that are going to help us address climate change, things that are going to help us deal with post-storm cleanups, whether it be debris management or rapid infrastructure repair, restoration, carbon capture. All of these things are new opportunities in the economic investment space. But as you can see, by contrasting getting out of some businesses and investment sectors to reduce risk and getting into new ones, we are refocusing ourselves. We are thinking about moving towards restoring ocean health, restoring ocean abundance so that it is there for us and good for us and helpful to us as a society. So let me talk very, very briefly about our own organization's ocean-related investing activities. We started over 10 years ago in this space, and it was a time when we were just about to start the 2007 recession, and we began asking ourselves, okay, what role can the economic investment sector play? And we started with the idea that we as the Ocean Foundation know what the threats are to the ocean. We even have a good idea of what many of the solutions are, and we can begin asking ourselves which industries those solutions might come from, and then examine those industry sectors and look for best-in-class products or service that we can invest in. This resulted in the creation in 2012, over 10 years ago, of the Rockefeller Ocean Strategy, which is now transformed over time into the Rockefeller Climate Solutions Fund. And this fund is basically a solutions fund, and we have a little over $200 million in assets under management, and it's basically items in this portfolio that have a product or a service that is actively good for the ocean and actively part of a climate solution portfolio. Rockefeller Capital Management and its subsidiary Rockefeller Asset Management are the investment advisors on this fund, but we provide the due diligence, the scientific valuation on the validation on the companies, and look for new companies, look for new opportunities. Just to give you a very fast example of what might fall in here, a known threat to the ocean is that ballast water introduces alien invasive species. We know that the solution is clean the water before it gets dumped. The probable sectors could have been the chemistry or filtration industry, and we ended up finding a company in Europe that had combined filtration with UV light treatment to address this problem. Our newest fund, which was launched in September 2020, is the Credit Suisse Rockefeller Ocean Engagement Fund. And unlike the first one I told you about, this one is focused more on harm to the ocean and reduction of risk. And so we are literally buying stock of companies and then engaging their management to give them advice and steer them away from doing harm. Think about how they can improve their products, their practices, their packaging, any business behavior in a way that will do less harm. This fund grew rapidly to almost $800 million in assets under management, and we hope to move it to $1 billion as soon as we possibly can. The main three focuses on this foci on this fund are pollution prevention, carbon transition, and ocean conservation activities. Our idea is to really research companies, screen them, understand what our engagement is, what are we asking them to change, and then in addition to doing the background research, I actually participate in the engagement calls with the management of those companies to explain to them why their current activity causes harm to the ocean, explain to them what they can change, and how that will end up being better for their bottom line, better for their public relations, and be therefore good for shareholder value. So it's a triple win in the end. Just to give you one quick example of a success story in this space, we talked to a major Japanese shipping company, and we went in with them and said, here are 5 articles about children dying, coastal pollution, ocean pollution from your end-of-life ship-breaking practices, ship recycling. They were running their ships onto the beach in India and had hired a local firm to dismantle them and sell the materials that were salvaged from the vessels. But it was primarily manual labor. It was not done safely. It was not done with the environment in mind, and was quite horrible. So we said, look, we want you to comply with the Hong Kong Convention on shipbreaking. In fact, we'd really like you to meet the European Community standards, which are slightly higher. And in the end, they agreed to do this. Not only did they agree to do this, but they asked their Japanese government to invest in the shipbreaking yard that they had been using in order to bring it up to the Hong Kong Convention standards. So they were making the commitment, and they asked for their own government to help. So the end result of either of these funds and the focus I'm suggesting on sustainability for the blue economy is a healthier ocean. But we're not giving up on profits. We're not giving up on earning income. We're not giving up on improving the GDP of small island developing states or coastal countries. We are focusing on economic returns as well as sustainability and ocean abundance. So I see absolutely no downsides to maintaining the production of oxygen from the ocean, maintaining its ability to be a heat sink, maintaining its ability to be a carbon sink, maintaining its ability to regulate the weather and provide food. This is all good, and eliminating the harm we've done to it is also good. So let's think about how we focus our economies in a way that restores ocean health and abundance. I will stop there. Thank you all for listening, and happily answer any questions.
Merci Marc pour cette très très belle présentation. Est-ce que nous avons des questions des participants? On a Véronique Garry qui lève la main.
Hello, everybody. Bonjour, tout le monde. Thank you for this presentation, and I would like to also thank CABusiness for sharing this opportunity of listening to so interesting presentations. I'm engaged in the tuna value chain industry, for those who don't know me. And our latest project, or which is actually up and running, well, in the commissioning stage, is to produce bioenergy from the effluents from our tuna cannery and our fish meal factory. So for the time being, as I said, we're still on the commissioning stage. But one thing is that we are using this gas now to reduce our carbon footprint in terms of using less fossil energy. My question would be, Mauritius doesn't have a legal framework today about carbonization, and so what would be your advice for companies who, like us, for instance, would like to promote these kind of initiatives, or to sell carbon units? What would be your advice to us as investors or to the government officials?
Excellent question. I think the opportunity of getting the effluent from processing is great for circularity and reduces waste, all of which is very good all by itself. But the carbon piece, I think, is going to be absolutely critical. And one of the things we're seeing lately is a real examination of the authenticity of carbon credits and carbon measurements. Many carbon offset programs have been exposed as not legitimate or certainly not professionally followed. And so I think the first thing for a government policy to do is really think about how any carbon offsets, credits, measurements are going to be done, and what methodology is going to be followed. For our seagrass and mangrove projects, we use Vera often, but we have used some of the other third-party standards and hired third-party verification firms to calculate and measure the carbon offsets. Understanding which one of those are the best can sometimes be challenging, and making sure that the consultants hired are actually doing their job can also be challenging, since they're often paid by the people who want their credits verified, and so the watching out for being told exactly what you want to hear rather than what you need to hear becomes critical. So I think that this is a space where we're going to see a lot of fallout of some of the bad practices. Hopefully that means some of the better practices will rise to the top and be more well recognized. And I think it will be great for businesses, but also for countries, right? If they're trying to meet their Paris commitments, in part through these kinds of measurement of carbon sequestration and storage, they're going to need believable measures, and that's going to be critical. I hope I've answered your question well enough, but great question.
Thank you.
Merci Véronique pour cette question. Et est-ce que nous avons d'autres questions parmi les participants?
On a Véronique qui a relevé la main. Peut-être qu'on peut la laisser. No, well, I did want to let the others ask questions, but since we're on this subject, would your foundation be able to help the government, for instance, to work on this whole policy and strategy?
So I didn't catch the first part of the question. It was, I think, blocked out by the interpretation system. So if you could start over, I apologize.
No, it's fine. I was asking whether your foundation would be able to help, for instance, the Mauritian government put together a policy and the necessary framework to be able to give the opportunity to companies to invest in this sector.
Yes. Simply stated, we have done a lot of work in that space of policy development of national policy on these things, both ocean acidification and blue carbon, and could share some templates and other information. So yes.
Thank you.
Merci Véronique. Il y a Guillaume Huguenin, président de Cap Business Océans Indien. À vous, Guillaume.
Thank you. Thanks, Véronique, and thank you, Mark, for a very insightful presentation. Thanks a lot. On the matter of carbon measurement, blue economy, decarbonization, etc., I think we are all interconnected. So I think we need evidently to have some sort of central organization to make sure that everybody is talking the same language, everybody is measuring the same things. I could propose that Cap Business Océans Indien, at least for our region, does take the lead with coming forward for a framework which we would all adhere to, because there are diverse interests, and of course gains of one might be losses of the other. So I think it's really important to have that global accepted framework so that we all move in the same direction. So I would propose that following this discussion, Cap Business does get in touch with probably Mark and others to try and unify members of Cap Business together for a certain measurement, and this would become a proposal to our governments.
I think that's very, very wise, and we can certainly give you our advice and direct you to others to look at as well, so that you make an informed set of decisions. And I think this is going to be crucial globally, as you say, because we are all connected. In fact, I wish that in the UNFCCC process of the conferences of parties that we had started on something like this, rather than starting with the compensation for damage and harm. I think we need to be investing in resilience and restoration and health, and figuring out how we're going to do that, how we're going to measure it, and how the transfers need to take place to pay for it.
Merci Guillaume. Est-ce que nous avons d'autres questions? So on a une question dans le chat. It's an observation. A World Bank report is available for
very good observation, pointing out that there's a World Bank report available for Mauritius on blue economy. I have seen that, and I do think that's a great piece. We tend to follow the World Bank's definition of blue economy, and have worked with their team closely on these issues. So I think that again, as Gil was saying earlier, this is a something we have in common globally, and increasing consistency, but also authenticity, so that we're making these things as real as possible, given how critical success is going to be on addressing human disruption of the climate.
Merci Marc. J'avais une petite question. Quand tu nous présentais le Crédit Suisse Rockefeller Ocean Engagement Fund, c'est le fonds d'investissement qui va s'engager avec les industries qui vont polluer l'océan. Et quelque part, d'où est venue cette idée? Parce que qu'on parle d'un ONG ou d'une organisation qui va protéger l'océan, c'est plus investir dans des solutions comme le premier fonds d'investissement, et tandis que là, c'est un fonds d'investissement qui va un petit peu à l'encontre des principes d'un ONG. D'où est venue cette idée de faire les choses différemment?
So there's been a lot, thank you for that question. There's been a lot of discussion about what's called impact investing, or investing with an environment, social, and governance lens, and transition-focused investing, all of these sorts of things. And, you know, if you are bringing, you know, if you're investing in private equity space, where you're seeing a company startup and you're helping bring a new product or service to the market that's a solution, you know, then your investing really is going to have impact. If you're merely buying stock in the marketplace, you know, what you hold or don't hold really doesn't necessarily matter to, you know, making change in the company, making improvement in how it relates to the ocean, how it relates to climate, etc., unless you are an active shareholder. And so this new fund came from that space of impact investing, and said, okay, let's actually go look for companies who we think can be improved. Let's go, you know, find these companies and then buy some of their stock so that they will listen to us, and then, you know, meet with their management and ask for change. The original idea for this fund resided at Credit Suisse. They put out an RFP asking for bids from different organizations to design this fund, and we, because we had partnered with Rockefeller Asset Management for a decade already, partnered with them again to write a proposal to Credit Suisse. And after a competitive process, we won the opportunity to design, build, launch, and manage this fund. And you know, the idea is not to be passive and just hold stock. And the idea is not just to buy stock in companies who are benign, but actually to buy stock in companies that we can change in some manner so that they do less harm. Now, obviously, we will exclude some companies that, you know, we're not going to improve the carbon footprint, behavior, or even attitude of Exxon. So there's a whole category of companies that we're going to exclude because they're incalcitrant, or their basic nature of their business itself is harmful. We will also probably, you know, exclude some companies who are already doing such a fantastic job they don't need to improve. And so we're looking at that middle group of companies who can change their products, their packaging, their processing, their practices and behavior in a way that will cause less harm to the ocean.
Merci, merci Marc. Et avons-nous d'autres questions parmi les participants? Si on n'a pas d'autres questions, je vais demander à notre directrice à Cap Business Océans Indien, mademoiselle Virginie Loret, de nous dire quelques mots.
Merci Yasmine. Alors, je souhaite avant tout remercier les intervenants. Merci beaucoup Marc, merci beaucoup Jérôme pour ces présentations de l'économie bleue, chacun à votre façon, avec des secteurs différents. Ça nous a apporté vraiment une meilleure vision de ce qui nous reste à faire, nous, dans la région. Il est vrai que notre président, donc M. Guillaume Huguedin, a déjà ciblé un axe sur lequel nous pouvons travailler, nous, au niveau de la région, et auquel Cap Business peut apporter aussi sa valeur ajoutée dans la mise en forme d'un dialogue déjà sur cette question et après de la mise en œuvre de la réflexion. Je souhaite également remercier la CCI Seychelles qui a collaboré pour la mise en œuvre de cette conférence, qui a également accueilli cette conférence, et je sais que toute son équipe a été mobilisée, donc merci beaucoup. Je suis aussi reconnaissante pour les différents participants. Nous avons eu des participants de toutes nos îles qui ont été connectés à différents moments de cette conférence, donc qui nous ont rejoints soit sur Zoom et également sur YouTube. Nous pouvons dire que nous ressortons plus intéressés sur l'économie bleue après cette heure de réflexion en commun. Nous allons continuer ces ateliers de réflexion et ces conférences-débats jusqu'au prochain forum économique qui aura lieu à Mayotte les 22, 23 et 24 novembre prochains. En plus de ce forum économique, donc pour bien nous y préparer, nous allons continuer des conférences-débats. La prochaine aura lieu à Madagascar, en coopération avec la Fédération des chambres de commerce et d'industrie de Madagascar et la Chambre de commerce et d'industrie d'Antananarive. Et cette prochaine conférence-débat sera à nouveau accessible en visioconférence et en présentiel à Tana, au sein des locaux de la CCI Tana, et elle aura lieu le 13 juillet 2023 à 9 h. Donc, nous vous donnons déjà rendez-vous pour ce prochain événement, le mois prochain, et également en novembre pour notre forum économique des îles de l'océan Indien, où nous allons à nouveau explorer les coopérations possibles au niveau de l'économie bleue et surtout comment nous pouvons mobiliser nos entreprises, les entreprises adhérentes de Cap Business, donc chacune des organisations professionnelles membres de Cap Business sur ce secteur prioritaire. Je souhaite enfin remercier mon équipe, donc Yashvin, Émilie et Fabiola, pour la réalisation de cette conférence débat, sans oublier Isabelle, notre responsable administratif et financier, qui n'a pas pu être là aujourd'hui. Merci beaucoup. Je pense que Yashvin, tu peux.
Merci à vous et merci encore une fois à Marc pour le temps que tu nous as accordé. Je sais que tu rentres d'un voyage en Europe et que tu as fait le maximum pour pouvoir participer à ce conférence débat. Et je tiens aussi à remercier à tous les participants, l'équipe technique et aussi l'équipe de Cap Business Océans Indien. Merci à vous et je vous dis à très bientôt pour la prochaine conférence débat à Madagascar. Bye bye.